local service ads on Google. If you're a plumber, you probably should know what these are. If you don't, stay tuned because we're going to learn about it. But we're seeing that they become a little less effective in some markets, and I want to make sure that you understand why that might be and some things that you can do to see if you can juice it back up there and what to do if you can't. So stay tuned. Let's dive in. I'm Tyler Williams, and I run a marketing agency that serves plumbers. What we do is we help plumbers grow. But the marketing landscape is always changing, and this is a perfect example of where that's happening right now. So let's dive into the topic itself with local service ads. So local service ads, first I want to let you know where you can find them. Google Plumber Near Me. And in most markets, what you will find is two spots at the very top of the search engine page that say Google Guaranteed. Those are the local service ads. They're sometimes called LSA ads, depending on who you talk to. But those are what we're going to talk about today, because what we're finding is that in some markets, they're performing like gangbusters. You're getting leads all the time. They're really good stability for your business. You can grow off of them. It's great. But in some markets, it's not. And sometimes we've seen the peak of the volume just suddenly start shrinking almost overnight. And so I wanted to make sure that you understood kind of how these things worked and some of the risks that are inherent within it. So first of all, let's talk about where they fit in the marketing funnel. And if you haven't actually gone back and watched or listened to some of my other stuff, I talk about a marketing funnel because, and I don't mean like a particular campaign funnel. I'm talking about your overall marketing funnel for your business. Really, you've got to make people aware. Then you've got to make them want to consider using you. And then you get them on conversion. And that's where the money part happens. So with the marketing funnel, these would sit down in the conversion zone, because anybody who Googles plumber near me or who's the plumber in my town, well, they have absolutely no loyalty to you whatsoever. They didn't go looking for you. They went looking for any plumber that would answer the call. Now, if you get that call, you serve the customer, cool. You get them in your ecosystem, you take care of them, they stay with you for a very long time, you got LTV, all that stuff, and they help contribute to the foundation of you building a bigger, better business. However, I want you to remember that these people come because they have no one else to call in their brain yet. And that, I think, is another issue that we'll talk about in a bit. But that's where they sit. They sit down in the conversion. They're very similar to PPC. We tend to tell people to give these things a shot early because they're very budget conscious. Usually the leads aren't based on click. They're based on points of contact, whether it's a message or a phone call. So what ends up happening is you get charged when somebody makes contact, and that is way cheaper than doing things through clicks. So with local service ads, keep in mind that they are extremely budget conscious. If you have a bad lead, you can also dispute that lead and use that budget on the next lead. So that's why we like to recommend it straight out of the gate, because it works well. It works really well. There's like no other advertising platform that'll be like, oh, our bad, here, let's give you a refund so you can use it on the next person. No one does that. I've never seen anything like that before. I get it. There's probably some out there. But so with local service ads, the problem that we're running into is what I think is a mixture of Google greed, to be perfectly frank, and not a shrinking inventory, but an inventory that is being spread thin. This platform in particular, Google protects more than anything else. It's number one on their platform, but it is also the one that takes the most verification in order to get through and onto, because they want your license number, they want your insurance. And what they're really doing is they're trying to make sure that you're a real business, and they're not going to accidentally send their customer, their user, to a dead stop somewhere. They don't want dead end like link clicks, which is why you get graded on your performance of how you answer and take care of these things. So Google Local Service Ads, here's what you can do if you see things slide down. Double check that you have good training for your CSRs in place so that way they know how to manage this lead platform on platform. So I would have them log into Google, look at the leads, the ones that have been marked booked. If you can fill in any of the information about these leads, if you have them, if you know that this phone number belongs to Sally Mae, put Sally Mae in there. And that way Google gets something back out of the return because they are an information company first and foremost. But what this is also going to do is send a signal back to Google that basically says, hey, we got one. This was a good one. Send us more of these. It's like a conversion with Google Ads. Send us more of these and we'll take care of your customer. So you need to mark the lead as booked, and then you need to absolutely go in and ask for review on the platform as well. And if it populates over to your Google business listing, which is sometimes a little squirrely, it'll show up as a verified job. And that gives a little bit more boost to your Google business listing, but also to credibility from other users who are looking at your reviews, which they do. So that's what you need to do if you start to see it slide. Because what I think is happening, because we are seeing some areas where they are sliding, and it's very unpredictable. So if you are working with another agency or you're doing these yourself, realize that this is not unique to you. Sometimes it tanks out of nowhere. And often what we find when we start going in and looking at it is we go, oh, there are CSRs, or there was no one on the receiving end to actually take care and curate this platform the way that Google asked us to, right? So then we make the client aware and they work on it, and we try and make sure they work on it. But the other thing is we've seen people just need to get paperwork refreshed. And one thing I've heard someone say is, hey, it could be that it goes back into a learning phase at this stage and you just kind of got to wait and then it'll kick back in. We have seen that sometimes. But the other less, I would say almost more critical thing is I think that PPC got so expensive, there's more plumbers utilizing this platform than ever before, and you're one of them. And because Google doesn't really use budget as the only thing that allocates whether or not you get an impression, it's spreading the inventory over just more people. And so, or more companies, right? So there used to be 5, now there's 10, but the market itself is the same size. So suddenly you're just not going to get as much as you used to if you had 2 or 3 other plumbers jump into the same service areas that you're trying to serve. And this is, I think, one of the biggest things within Google right now is inventory is being pinched, and you're not going to be able to get as much as you wanted out of a platform like Local Service Ads because budget does not determine visibility. And that's one of the big misconceptions about LSA is like, I got my budget set to $1 million. That should be okay. Nope. Turns out for some of you, that's not going to matter because that's not the true health of the platform is how much you want to spend, not according to Google. So what do you do if you can't get it back, right? What if there really are just too many people in the market and you're not being rotated in enough to support your business? Well, you got to realize there's other ways to get in front of customers. There's other places, and it's not always going to be fighting for the customer that needs a plumber today. It's going to be fighting for the customer to build an association so that way when they need a plumber, you're in the running before they go anywhere else, right? Think of the way that you look at restaurants. Restaurants, if I say, hey man, where can we get a good pizza? You're going to say, well, all right, there's this place, they do this kind, there's this place, they do this kind. That same kind of association is built up within everybody in your market who owns a home. And the trick is getting on that list. Honestly, I'll tell you what, the Google list is great, but you know what's even better? The list in their head. If you can get on that, you have leapfrogged the Google list. Now, that said, people will have a list in their head and then they'll want to go and they'll want to go and verify. They'll look you up on Google. They'll start reading some of your reviews, and then maybe they'll go to the second one on their head, and it becomes a judgment call between 2 people. But I would much rather have you in the precursor sort of like judgment zone than a zone later, like when they're just looking at a list on Google and there's like 10 other plumbers in there. Because here's the deal. How many restaurants do you rattle off when you're looking for a pizza? It's going to be, 3? Maybe 4, right? And then you're going to pick between that versus 10 and then scrolling forever and trying to find a different one or a new one. You're not going to click on a Yelp link that says like, hey, 10 more plumbers, which is why Yelp people are usually tire kickers, by the way. It's because they were indecisive on Google's platform. Now they're going to Yelp to be even more indecisive. So anyway, little aside there. But that's what you have to do in marketing and in business, is if something doesn't work, you have to pivot. And that's what I want to see you guys really embrace is, all right, is this going to do what we think it will? What's the history? And if that's the history, what is the likely future of this platform? And if that's the likely future, well, and it's not going to do what we need, what else can we do? And you have a myriad of options, but it's probably not going to be lead generation. It's probably going to be what I always preach about, building relationships in your community with your prospects before they need you. So that way you're the one they want to call. And the big thing about this is rather than get chosen out of a list, just be chosen before they ever go to a list. So that's my story about LSA. LSA is a great platform when it's working well for you. One last note about it is people have a tendency to build their companies on the back of a platform like this, and there's inherent dangers in that. So every time you are leaning heavily and building your business off of a lead generation platform, you need to be taking some of the money you're earning off of it and reinvesting it into other forms of advertising more aggressively than if you were building it all up through awareness and organic, okay? And that's because if that platform goes down, you have no business being in business. So what you need to do is you need to extract the resources out of that platform, use it to help build your business, and reinvest in places where you aren't so vulnerable to whatever Google decides to do and whatever market shifts are going to change your ranking. Okay, so that's my whole story about LSA. So I hope this was helpful. This is stuff I think about a lot. If you are a plumber and you want to talk one-on-one with me or someone on my team, go to tylerwilliams.net for my personal website, or you can go to my agency website, mammothforplumbers.com. And we'd be happy to sit down and sort of look at your marketing, give you some pointers. Of course, we're going to tell you what we do at the same time, but we try and be useful regardless. So thanks for listening, and you have a good one.